Like it or loathe it, we have the solution to fix FF14's gearing problems. The first change needed will be of no surprise, but towards the end of the vid we'll go much further. Advanced Copium warning. There will be certain sections of the community which will strongly detest the approach here, because no one should ever get gear without the effort that I perceive myself to have put in. Very quickly, what is the issue that some people, including myself, but certainly not everyone, have with gearing in FF14? One of the things that FF14 has always promoted itself on is being able to play multiple jobs on the same character. But once at endgame, you may conclude that the way gear is obtained greatly restricts the freedom you have to actually play multiple jobs in different types of content. This becomes more apparent as you embark on increasingly difficult content, having increasing gear level requirements in terms of both entry and community expectations within the party finder. But the issue does not just apply to players tackling hard content. There's a frustrating, often heard opinion from some elitist players being dismissive of casuals, which is basically, well, if you're not even doing Ultimate or Savage content, then you don't even need the top gear, so quit wanting it. The point, like it or not, is that FF14 is and likely always will be a game in which character development is obtained solely through vertical gears progression. And what the vast majority of players have in common, yes, casuals and hardcore raiders alike, regardless of the types of content they want to do, is that they want and enjoy the sense of their character progressing and getting stronger. If I just want to see my character hit hard in a dungeon, then that's great. Anyone who tells me that that's not good enough a reason to want to develop my character can, with respect, go and do one. The restrictive nature of gearing is born out of three key aspects. 1. Top tombstone weekly lockouts never being lifted. 2. Savage loot lockouts being kept in place for roughly 80% of a gear's time of relevance. 3. No catch-up mechanics that actually fully catch you up. I'll demonstrate the issue with two examples, one at either end of the spectrum. The player wanting to get into the latest Ultimate, but not necessarily an established static group doing split run shenanigans. Ultimates basically require best in slot gear, which generally always means the chest and weapon from the last fight of the current Savage tier. On top of Tomes gear and getting rolls on all other items, the weapon and chest combined cost 16 tokens. So worst case, you have to decide on the one class to start preparing 16 weeks before you want to enter the Ultimate. And if you find later that for whatever reason you want or need to change roles, you're screwed, as you need to potentially gear over another 16 weeks, if the chest piece isn't shared between the jobs. Arguably, a solution personally could be to progress multiple characters' gear on different classes at the same time, but that feels like a slap in the face in FF14. At the other end, you have a casual not running harder content that wants to advance their character because that's the core mechanic which binds most players in most MMOs. It takes 5,510 tomes to buy a full set of tome gear, so 13 weeks to buy a full set, and also 9 weeks of alliance raids once they're out to upgrade to the highest item level. So as with the hardcore raiders, you're heavily penalised if you decide you want to change job, especially if it's one that shares 0 gear, and effectively have to start that 13-week timer from scratch again. Now, this does need a balanced approach. After all, FF14 is not a charity. It's a key property for a corporation which unsurprisingly has the goal of making lots of money. So for example, removing lockouts completely just isn't going to fly, as they need to keep a large number of people playing the game and paying their subscriptions. And personally, I think it would actually damage the game, as having goals to chase, especially when it comes to character development, are still important. So let's tackle each point previously stated. 1. The weekly tombstone lockout. Why this one is never lifted has always intrigued me, and unfortunately with my conclusion, I don't think it ever will be. Personally, I think this one is a targeted attack on those casuals I mentioned before. I myself played the game like this for my first 2 or 3 years. Basically, I logged in a few times a week, did a dungeon or 2 each time, eventually capping for the week, and that was it. That was the totality of my time in the game. I think a lot of people would be surprised at the significant volumes of people who play the game in this fashion, constituting a large amount of Square Enix's monthly subs. And unfortunately, because Square Enix wants to keep those subscribers hooked in and paying all year round, I'm confident they'll never budge. but we can dream on. So our solution here should come at no surprise. Have the weekly lockout on gear launch, e.g. patch 6.4, but remove it the following patch, e.g. patch 6.5. This splits up the patches nicely. Even patches focus on gearing your main job, giving players a medium-term goal and secure subscriptions for Square Enix. And then odd patches focus on freedom to gear alternative jobs, which actually does more than just let you get more gear. It opens up the game to experience existing content fresh on different jobs, providing improved replayability post odd-numbered patches, which often feel a little dry. 2. Savage loot lockouts. I'm not going to dwell on this, as the solution proposed is the same as just covered. Remove the loot lockouts when the odd-numbered patches launch. 3. Catch-up mechanics. As warned, this is where some people are going to need some serious copium, as we're about to get a little controversial. Headline here is that we use the Alliance raid, which drops an odd number patches as today, but we seriously mix things up. We have no weekly loot lockouts from the start, improved gear dropped to the max item level at the time, and add in upgrade mats for tome gear. Importantly though, the restriction which is kept in place is that you can only receive 1 drop per run. Now, how would this work in detail? Each boss would drop either 2 or 3 gear chests, which could contain armor or accessories. Chests would not be job specific, so for example leg chest, which becomes the legs for whatever job you open it on. At least one of each boss's chest should be a random chest, i.e. could be any gear piece, to help avoid players quitting after say the first boss because it's the only one that drops a certain chest. Each boss would also drop an upgrade item chest. This chest, upon opening, would have a random chance of being either the armor, accessory or weapon upgrade. In another huge change, the gear dropped would be the same as the current max item level, with a mix of secondary stat allocations, meaning that best in slot would never purely be from the Alliance raid. But the Alliance raid gear could, and I'd say should, contribute to best in slot, with the best set being a combination of upgraded tome, savage and a couple of Alliance raid pieces. Now, the reason I previously said each boss should drop either 2 or 3 chests is down to time balancing versus savage content, which Square Enix would need to figure out, as it would be important to balance the 2 different approaches to acquiring gear, with savage needing to be the more efficient option to keep it populated. This is also why we retain the 1 chest per run restriction in the Alliance raid, so a player can choose to run the Alliance raid as many times as they want from the off, but a single run takes around 40 minutes, so you can only get 1 chest per 40 minutes. Savage, on the other hand, in a competent group can be run 3 or 4 times in that same 40 mins, with, as today, more definitive drops, being able to roll on multiple chests as today, and also retaining the token system as today, so there's never a wasted run. The top item level weapon, ignoring ultimate, would remain only in the last raid of the current Savage tier, which again is purely for the purpose of keeping Savage relevant, with the eventual catch-up mechanic for matching the Savage weapon item level being the final form of the relic weapon as it is today. There we have it, gearing solved. I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on this in the comments, mainly intrigued to hear alternative solutions which other minds have concocted. We should get more details on the changes to Savage loot detailed in the next live letter, so I'm excited to see what that's going to bring. Agree or disagree, I'd hugely appreciate you hitting those lovely subscribe and like buttons if you enjoyed this conversation, as it's an enormous help. All done. Like and subscribe to complete the duty.